Hey guys, what is up? Fado82 coming at you with some Rust gameplay today. Wanted to do an updated guide on C4 damage because since the last guide a lot has changed in terms of the health of the building walls and also the damage of the C4. So let's get right into it. The health of the wood walls is now 250 per wood wall. The wood door itself is also worth 250 in terms of its value. So we have a wood 1x1 here. Inside the wood 1x1 we have a chest, a sleeping bag, and a furnace. And we have the same in each of the other 1x1s here. We're going to go ahead and test the C4 damage on a wall and see what it does to the various building types. So starting off with the wood, C4 is said to do about 250 damage. So let's see what it does to the structure as a whole by placing one charge in the middle of one of the walls. So you'll notice that it completely took out the wood 1x1. It eviscerated the sleeping bag, the furnace, and the chest that was in there, so if you were after any loot, you would not be getting it, and that's something to make note of. When raiding, guys, actually there's still one wood wall here which has 98 health left, so it didn't take the entire 1x1 away. When raiding with wood, guys, you might want to consider using tools. Certainly C4 to get through the first layers if it's a big base, but if you're getting closer to what you think might be a loot room, you might want to switch to hand tools at that point. So moving over to a stone wall has a value of 500 per wall, so that would take essentially 2 C4 charges to get through if it's truly doing 250 damage per wall. The door here, which is a sheet metal door, is worth 200 in value, and it'll take 1 C4 charge to get through that particular door. Inside this 1x1 we have a large storage chest, a furnace, and a sleeping bag. Let's go ahead and see what C4 does in terms of the collateral damage, placing it on this wall, and see how it affects the chest in there, the furnace, and the sleeping bag. It should take 2 charges to get through a stone wall. Let's go ahead and put 1 charge down and just confirm that it indeed does do 250 damage per stone wall, and it did exactly 250 damage. So what this indicates to me right now is that C4 does consistently 250 damage to this single wood wall, or stone wall rather, and on the back it also damaged this, not to the same value, but there was some collateral damage, so this lost some health as well, and the wall over here also lost some damage. Let's go ahead and just open up the door. The door also took damage. It's at 8 health now, and looking in here we can see that that 1 charge took out everything but the furnace, so that's something that you want to make note of. To get through that stone wall, we'll place 1 more C4 charge, and boom goes the dynamite. We've taken out that wall as well as the door, which we can now sort of glide through. This wall has lost more health as well as that wall too, and the foundation also. So C4 does a bit of a blast radius and does some collateral damage to everything housed inside that area, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that more in a bit. And guys, I just wanted to show you a trick for using C4 if you are raiding and you don't want to destroy all of the loot. There are some ways you can mitigate against doing that. So in here we have, again, a stone 1x1. I'm using stone as an example because it's probably the most common type of base you're going to be raiding in the game initially. There's a large storage crate in here, which, as we saw in the previous videos, tends to get destroyed fairly quickly. So let's say we're coming upon a loot room and we think there's some loot in there and we don't want to have that loot affected. In terms of the C4 placement, because it has a blast radius, when you're placing it in the middle of a wall, it's going to be most prone to hitting things that are closer to the ground, which are normally going to be where those chests are placed. Let's go ahead in the upper corner here and throw a C4 charge and see if that offsets and mitigates the damage done to that chest. Oftentimes it will, and we'll notice that the wall's now down to 250 health, and the chest is still there. In previous videos, guys, the chest was gone after 1 hit, dead center in the wall. Moving over to the sheet metal tier, guys, just make note of the value that the stone was worth 500 per wall. The sheet metal is 200 per wall, which means the C4 is going to be much more damaging in terms of placement. The sheet metal is not necessarily an upgrade from the stone at this point. I don't recommend using the sheet metal. It is more effective against melee weapons, from what I'm told, but the stone is in my opinion far superior. So again, we have the chest, we have the furnace and the sleeping bag. we'll go ahead and we'll place one C4 charge, and it's going to do quite a bit of damage. It's going to do damage similar to what we saw in the wood 1x1. And it blew the sheet metal apart completely, except for one wall that's standing with 71 health. We've lost all of the loot in there, so we can't loot the furnace, the chest, or get access to the sleeping bag. And guys, now we're going to test the C4 on the highest building tier, which is the armored building tier. The armored tier has 1,000 per wall, per door, and also the foundations as well are valued at 1,000. So it is the highest level building tier, and as we've seen in previous videos, it appears as though the C4 does 250 damage per charge to walls. If we look in here, we have the large chest, the furnace, and the sleeping bag, and we'll go ahead and test out the collateral damage. Because all the pieces of this building tier are the same value, we'll go ahead and place it on one of the walls, and we'll do the wall in the back here, which would be by the furnace, taking the chest and the sleeping bag a little bit away from the wall to test out that damage. Now let's go ahead, guys. We'll stand back here by this fire. We'll gain some comfort here, and we will place a C4 charge dead center on the wall, and we'll see how much it does. It was not dead center, that was some poor placement, but nonetheless we'll see how much damage it is doing to that metal wall. So it took the health of the metal wall down from 1,000 to 650 damage. In terms of that particular number, it's a little bit different, because that would actually indicate that it did 350 damage to the metal wall instead of 250 damage. Let's place one more charge and see what type of damage it's doing to it. Okay guys, it was at 650 damage before, it's now at 300 damage, so that time the charge did, again, 350 damage per blast. So it appears as though the C4 is doing more damage to the metal walls, the armored walls rather, but it's still taking more C4 charges to get through it. And this last one should do it, and it certainly did. Behind it, we've taken out the furnace, the sleeping bag, and everything else as well. What's a little bit confusing here, let's go ahead and heal up this wall and just test that out again, because I'm a little bit curious about the damage on this particular tier and the way that the C4 is affected by it. I just want to test it out for the purposes of this video, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in terms of C4. It seemed to consistently do 250 damage before. Let's just go ahead and test it again. That's a little bit better placement. We'll see if it does the same value. And it looks like, yeah, it's down to 650 health again on that wall. So it didn't matter that we sort of placed it lower before. So the C4 damage on the metal walls, the armored walls rather, appears to be doing, instead of 250 damage, it's doing 350 damage per blast. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. This is Fado82. Peace out.